Hey everyone, Ponyo here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of After Dinner Mints. Before we begin, I highly encourage everyone watching to join us in the Art Blocks Discord. For those watching us on the live stream, there will be people in the community chatting in the Art Blocks Mints channel. A link to our Discord can be found in the description of this video. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of our weekly show. And now I want to introduce our guest for this evening. Formerly of Christie's Auction House and returning guest of After Dinner Mints, we have Jessica Phifer.
Hi, guys.
And our second guest, we have curator at the Galveston Art Center, Nance.
Hi, everyone.
Well, thank you both, Dennis and Jessica, for joining me on what will be, I know, a lovely evening of discussion. Jessica, thank you for returning and joining us again. Dennis, I appreciate you jumping on. I know you both are friends, and maybe just to kick things off, maybe you can tell me a little bit about how you both know each other.
Oh, we know each other from the scene, man.
Okay.
From like we go way back. A lot of shared artist friends. I adore Dennis. In fact, I don't even know why we're doing this separately. We should be in the same room, getting crunk, smoking cigarettes. I don't know why we're doing this apart, but I adore Dennis.
Yeah, Jessica's amazing. I think I remember the moment I met you. I worked at Lawndale Art Center prior to my current position, and there was a group of photographers that did a mobile exhibition in a moving truck. There were images of Katrina, and it was at, I think, the 5-year anniversary, possibly. And JP, as I call Jessica, if I say that, was there, and we hit it off immediately, and I found out that she did actually work post Katrina in New Orleans, and was like, wait, you're an amazing person, but you're also in the art world, so you're passionate about things. So I was like, you're my people. And so I think from then it's like, yeah, Jessica's like an amazing advocate for artists, a great person. So it's fun. It's like keeps popping up. It's like, yeah. So she'll be there at the nonprofit shows. She'll be there at the big auctions, at the big fundraisers. But it's like, yeah, definitely, yeah. Props to you.
Oh, Dennis.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
no, but I remember that. I actually looked him up. It was Noor, and his name was like Kadir. I couldn't pronounce it. He was Holland and did that photo thing that we did at like kind of impromptu on the lawn at Lawndale, and I was
I
like,
vaguely remember, yeah.
This is Jessica. Yeah, so also too, like, I have a lot of respect for folks that work in the art world that also like have passions about like the world at large.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and fun fact, taking my mother to get her second dose of the vaccine, driving through the mass vaccination site. Who checked us in? Jessica Phifer.
Wow,
Volunteering
awesome.
for a hospital to check people in. So props to you, yeah, for being
awesome.
involved in the community beyond just arts. So.
Well, one day I would love to have. Maybe we could do like kind of a live After Dinner Mint session, like the three of it, because I know you mentioned being in the same room. I think it'd be cool to kind of do like some kind of conversation live together, maybe in Marfa or maybe like down the road. But we can talk about that later on. I don't want to get too far ahead. I actually want to take it like kind of a step back, and maybe you both can tell us a little bit about your background as it relates to the art world.
Dennis, you want me to go first? Get it over with?
Yeah, go first. Yeah. You go.
First of all, God, that was like, I didn't know he was going to do all that shit. That was very sweet. I love you, honey. Okay, I'm just going to get this over with. So, background, very quickly. I studied art history, worked for Christie's for 14 years in a sort of senior business getting capacity. And then during COVID, my office closed, and I thought long and hard about what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to stay in the art world, and I just sort of hunkered down and laid low, and found that with very little need to do much outreach, nice business opportunities were coming to me, and so I was just quietly brokering some deals here and there and enjoying doing that. And I have just recently agreed to come on as a senior director with a London-based art advisory firm, Murphy and Partners. So
Wow.
that's what I'm doing now, and like kind of do some. Oh, thanks, bud. Just we'll see how it goes. But kind of do some like international matchmaking, putting one picture over here with another person over here, and so we'll see how it goes. But that's my professional art world background, and we won't go into the personal gushy stuff unless there's time to. But Dennis, you tell us about you.
Yeah, arts related and specific to my current role at the Galveston Art Center. I probably over 15 years, if I counted more, it makes me feel older, have been involved specifically in arts nonprofits. Current role at the Galveston Art Center, which is small nonprofit art space on Galveston Island, about an hour south of Houston, Texas. Um, Prior to that, I was the exhibitions and programming director at Lawndale Art Center for 9 years. Lawndale Art Center is a really important space, has been for many years in Houston as kind of an entry point to lots of artists in the Houston community. Um, studied studio art and French because I like language was always a passion of mine and French culture, and I realized that like wait, they actually aren't so different. They speak to each other. I actually see the arts as a type of language or an extension of language. And so I think that, um, yeah, background in the arts, lived in Japan, taught English for 3 years, but my main focus and my current role is working with local and regional artists, really giving them a platform and a voice in nonprofit spaces. So I've installed exhibitions at most spaces in Houston in my early 20s, but my role now really relates to just like being involved in the community and kind of giving that platform. Non-collecting institutions, we're not buying work, we're nonprofit, so it's primarily exhibition spaces. So
Got it. Okay.
we'll get into that.
I was gonna
Yeah, yeah.
say we should
Some
talk
bullets to
about
talk
the
about
implications of that.
this and educate. Like there was, yeah, but that's my short and sweet.
Okay, great. And for both of you, did your love for art, run through your family, or was there like kind of a specific artist or style of work that piqued your interest in art and that helped you kind of pursue your goals in what you're doing now?
For me, my father was an artist, and not like the term that's bandied about these days, visionary artist. Not quite there. He wasn't in like a sanitarium, but he was definitely an amateur artist who, paid no mind to the canon. He wasn't wrestling with like big art historical ideas. He just really, really, really loved to make stuff, and he was a great draftsman. He'd get these like courtroom artist gigs occasionally. He was a total wild card nut job, and whenever I like find myself getting too, I don't know, into too rarefied an air in my corner of the art world. I don't know. It's like I take solace in the fact that I'm reminded that like my truest, purest love of art was through someone like that, who was from a decidedly like not academic perspective. He just had this urgency to make stuff that was roiling in him. So I'm spoiled in that way. I think it's the best way to come into art. I'm lucky for it.
Great. And how about you, Dennis?
My parents were like working class folks. My mother worked in education as a teacher. My father was an accountant. I think they were both super supportive in terms of like you be you, do what you want to do. Um, how are you going to make money? Was always a thing they've come around to, but I think they understood like the passion of what I do. I think they were both great problem solvers and also just really open to giving me freedom to like enter into this field. I do owe a great debt to the teachers I had. I felt fortunate growing up in the suburbs of Houston, having like really great teachers at this like school that was like a little microcosm of Houston, like completely representative of like the diversity of Houston in all many ways. But I mean, having an art teacher give me scholarships to go to the Glass Cell School on Saturdays. My parents never went to museums so much, but they drove me there every Saturday morning through high school because it was free. So, yeah, teachers, it was something I was always passionate about. And so it grew from there. So,
Great. And then, so you work at the Galveston Art Center. You're a curator there. What type of artwork is exhibited in that space?
so, our mission focuses primarily on regional based or artists working in the region. It's been defined as Texas, sometimes the Gulf Coast. I think like I'm pretty broad with the interpretation of that because I think that borders are problematic things. And it's really like artists that are, I mean, simply put, like regional, like local in the sense of the broadest amoebius way. Um, right now we have an artist from Arkansas, which was like I dipped over the border just because it was like what they were doing was really speaking to what we needed to be talking about. A lot of that's practical in terms of our budget size. We're a pretty small nonprofit that's been around since the 70s. You know, has long roots. I think it's kind of part of that wave of nonprofits. Lots of nonprofits were being formed. Same with Lawndale, where I used to work in the
Yeah.
70s and 80s. There was this urgence of like, we need spaces for artists to show work. And so they become somewhat institutionalized, but they still operate on a pretty lean scale. We have a staff of 4 full-time people.
Wow.
We rotate exhibitions 8 times a year. Um, that's centralized around Art Walk, which is like a community event where we like partner with area businesses to have 8 times a year where we open up and we do a thing. And it's really supposed to be an economic driver. Galveston, if you've never been, is a tourist destination. Um, I could talk about Galveston forever, but it's like we're really reaching everyday people who are walking in off the street. So there's this with the artists that we show, there's a lot of balance with pushing ideas. I think like 3 words that are used in our mission are engage, provoke, inform, and inspire. And so like those become kind of like touch points of who I work with. I could keep going, but
No,
I'll
no,
stop there. I mean,
that's
Galveston's fascinating and interesting if you want to look there. Amazing little pocket of history. So
What he should go into is the transformation of the sort of curatorial rigor that's taken place since he's got, I mean, so
yes, please, yeah.
well, no, I've also like I joined Galveston Art Center. It's been over 5 years now, just like since the fall. And I'm my uh, predecessor was Clint Willauer, who was an amazing curator, champion of Texas artists, like went to every show, knew all the artists, was really great about acquiring work and getting institutions as well. He was actually there for 25 years. And so I took his role once he retired, and Clint and I were close. Like he's the best person. I mean, similar with Jessica, it's like love to sit down, have a drink, and talk about what's going on in the art world. Um, yeah, so in the past 5 years, I really just tried to like press on the education I got when I was at Lawndale in terms of just like looking at so many submissions from artists over 9 years there. There's a wealth of like work being made and so many people that I think just like finding they just need the platform and access to an audience. We're like I said, nonprofit. We have 3 galleries, free admission. Walk in off the street. Please put your mask on. Like that's where we are now. But like, it's really there just to like to open up some minds, hopefully too. Because I know growing up, my parents, I said like wouldn't take me to a museum, but they might take me to a place like Galveston, walk down the Strand in the historic district, and we'd wander in looking at the shops. And you'd wander in and you'd see a show and you'd be like, is this art? like these things on the floor? Are these like really like, so it's like really just trying to like reach real people about like real ideas that artists are sort of exploring. So
Got it. And then, you said you received, a bunch of submissions. Like, how do you kind of like sift through all of these submissions and, select what's going to be a part of, an exhibit in the space of the Galveston Art Center?
yeah, so Galveston, we don't do an open call process, but like I'm one person, I have an email address, send me your work,
Yeah.
pitch me an idea, I'll listen to it. We'll do a studio visit. Lawndale was based on submissions primarily, and we worked with a committee that was made up of members of the community, like artists who've shown there, artists who are like really representative of like community at large, to like program that space at the time. In Galveston, it's really like relationship building in many ways. Um, there's a lot of relationship building, I think, in terms of being an artist, and that's basically how I've made my path through. It's just like listening to people, keeping your ears open, keeping your eyes open. Yes, you can send pitch emails, but I mean, sometimes it like starts with a studio visit. It starts with a like, hey, what are you doing? And it's like, maybe that visit isn't immediately a show, but maybe we keep a conversation going. It's like, there's so many pathways where I am following artists through Instagram. I'm following artists like through studio visits, watching where they're showing. I did give myself some notes, just like, pardon me, because I was like,
Yeah, yeah, please.
there's not like a really clean cut example of like how I pick an artist, but I think there are a few like really key like touch points, like on um, like what are some good criteria. I think like I have to think about the artist and where they are at the stage in their career, whether they're emerging or established. Like maybe it's an emerging artist that needs that opportunity, or maybe it's an established artist that wants to try something different that wouldn't work in a commercial space. But I also, there's the other component of the audience, and it's like, not that I just need to pander to the audience, but maybe I need to poke them a little bit right now and bring this person in to like start a dialogue with them.
Mhm.
So there's that balance of like where the artist is with the work they're making, where is our audience, and what do they need to be hearing, um, versus like, the work itself. Like the work itself, how does this, there's some practical things that come into it. It's uh, like, do you have a website that I can like look to? Like, I need to write a bio for you. Is
Yeah.
there anything written about you? Like, there's some things when an artist does have like a track record of doing certain things that you can pull onto and be like, hey, also with the size of our organization, like I would love to go after like a huge big time artist, but I also know that like our capability, it's like scaling where they are in their career versus what we can offer them
Mhm.
in terms of where they are, and trying to find that right balanced moment where it's like magic. Because my favorite thing is when an artist has a show and they do something better after our show, because it's like we did good, like we
Yeah.
served them. So if that, I mean, I could go on, but I think there's lots of different things. Timing is a huge thing. It's like, what are you making and what is the moment we're in now? Because I try not to program too far out so that we're actually like speaking to the moment and like
Mhm.
what are people thinking about? What's a conversation we can have around a show? So
I'm curious to ask, actually, you were talking about how once people have, an exhibit in your space and then maybe they go on to do bigger and better things or branch out. Like, do you help with that? Like help facilitate, connections between other galleries or other exhibits, within Texas or beyond?
I do the best I can. A lot of this is like a weird thing that like there's no control over. Like
Mm.
it's more like recently there was a body of work that was like someone had that they wanted to place in an institution that collected it. And I was like, well, let me reach out to a contact and see what they can do. And it's
Mhm.
like sometimes I mean, my role as curator is like the caretaker.
Mhm.
And
Wait,
like I wanted to
an artist
care.
or a collector said this, or was it an artist? Wait, what
There
happened?
was an artist and they had some
Oh,
work,
okay.
and I was like, oh, maybe let me reach out to a few people I know, but then it's like a whole shuffle, and it's kind of like extracurricular to
Yeah.
like the shows that we do, but it's like most of the time I think minimally as like a curator too. I don't know if it's late. It's just like showing up for them. It's like you worked with them, they did a show, they did another show, you're there at the opening, or you're following up and going and seeing the show if you don't want to get COVID at an opening. Like you're there for them and just so that you support them. And then like there's not a direct like, hey, I'm gonna get you a show immediately after, but I hope
Yeah.
that like I feel the institution and the organization with Galveston has a really great reputation like through history, that I would love to think that people see like, wow, they did a show in Galveston. Maybe we need to like look at them closer.
Hmm. Okay. And I'm thinking
Mm.
now a little bit more broadly, what are some of the biggest reasons? I know you kind of touched base on some of them, Dennis, but like what are some of the biggest reasons a specific artist can get their art work displayed in like a museum or kind of a bigger gallery? Is it more of like their name, a lot of, you were saying like their previous artwork, or is it a lot of, connections, knowing the right people? Is it, kind of like a relationship kind of deal that helps elevate them to that level?
The relationship can be part of it, but I also too love a recluse. Like I love it when you can like find someone that's just like, I'm not on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. I live in a hole. I don't have an email address, and you're like, your work is amazing. We're gonna
Yeah.
bring it. But I don't think it's completely relationship, but there's an accessible level. Like there has to be some. You have to be accessible to people to see your work. Um, yeah, I mean, there's not like one stroke of like magic that any artist can do it. I also, and like maybe this is like treading into like more complicated conversation, but it's like I sometimes do get suspicious when an artist is like too well put together. It's
Mm,
like I get sponsored ads on Instagram now from artists, and I'm immediately suspicious of those artists because I'm just like, oh, you're working me.
yeah.
Like I don't want to be worked, but I want it to feel natural, and I want it to be
Kind of happen organically, maybe.
organically. But there's like every artist coming into the field, and that's not to be like I try my best not to be like the complete gatekeeper. Um, like I think that like the best thing I can do is just like listen and like look and be aware of what's happening and what other people are saying and respond and sort of like join in that conversation. I don't think that I need to like dictate like this is what we need. Um, so it's like finding that like kind of keeping the ear open to like who's involved, who's around. Um, I don't know. It's tough because it's like each artist has like their own struggle to get their work out there. It's not just maybe they don't have a lot of money and they can't get something and can't like go to a pricey MFA program. It's like I need to listen to them. But maybe
Mhm.
they're like trust fund and have a lot of money, but their struggle is like really different because
Yeah.
they have access to things that others wouldn't. So it's like finding a way to balance all of those and make sure that like what we put out there is like really just like kind of marking a moment of like this is where they are, this is
Yeah.
where we are, and then just doing the best I can with it. It's like this feels right. There's a gut feeling thing to it, and it's definitely in the scope of like this space and this conversation and possibly lots of listeners too. It's definitely not financially driven. Like I try my best to like keep my ears out of that because like it's hard for me. I can't be like, oh, give them a show because we'll get a big donation from that space. Because to me, that's major conflict of interest. It immediately
Yeah.
like calls in my credibility. It's like it's definitely about um, just like striking that balance. It's tough because there's so many artists making work, and it's
Yeah.
like I mean, we went from when I worked at Lawndale and Galveston when I started, we were doing over 24 shows a year, and we were just like cranking work out, putting it out there too. But recently, in the past 2 years, like we've actually scaled back a bit at GAC to do fewer shows over longer periods to give more chances for people to see their work, more chances for educational programs attached to them. Um, Maybe someone would write about them, hopefully, too. Like we could do some marketing around the show. So figuring all those things out as well. It's tough. Like it's tough. I've actually hit a different phase of like where I am with like working with artists through the past 2 years, especially of like, okay, like what do we need to be doing?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Jessica? Like, what's your take on, the more like the traditional art world and how they're, seeing artists and the type of work? Do you think that, money is a big driver? Obviously, I mean, obviously money can do a lot of things. And do you think there's a lot of galleries and museums out there that's kind of like a main focus why they would bring someone into, space?
Do you mean oh, there's so many different ways to take that. Do you mean let's focus on
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Do you mean like a gallery choosing whether or not to bring an artist on to represent them?
Yeah, do you think that, if a gallery knows that it's like, hey, this artist right here is going to bring in a ton of money because, you know, this is like a big name, or they do something, I don't know, maybe they've had like a big like history, like obviously that would probably, I mean, I would think be like a huge driving force if I'm not mistaken, but I'm just curious to know what your pulse is on that.
Oh, for sure. I think there's so many different ways to slice and dice that will reflect uh, the age of the gallery, the profile of the gallery's mission statement, the optics of the gallery, what kind of joint they want to be, right? Do you need to sell, or does it behoove you to bring on an artist who is very limited in their commercial viability, but has tremendous sex appeal, has a really interesting, a really unique argument, a different angle. I mean, that's what's so peculiar about. It's just so peculiar about galleries. This is so not where I was thinking we were going conversationally, but it's like it's an interesting thing to think about. Like art making is difficult enough as it is. Like, and we wax on a lot about the heroic act of making art, for fuck's sake, but also it's like really weird and complicated to try and sell art for one. It's not just always just some crude mercenary act. And furthermore, to like try and build a reputation for yourself and maintain some credence to like to hold the line of what you believe in and have and somehow still have a great diversity of people representing what you believe in and making that commercially viable and to supporting these artists and maintaining relationships over years and years with collectors whose tastes are changing all the time. Like it's when we were talking about things we were going to cover earlier today, and I think Dennis and I were maybe too cursory in our review of these questions. It occurred to me that like, it's just as interesting a challenge for them. So anyhow, I just got off topic. So what you're asking? So what are you asking? What they look for? I think they look for any number of things depending upon where they are,
Yeah.
what their mission statement is, where they are in their growth trajectory, where they are in their confidence and their beliefs, and whether or not this artist, you know, represents those adequately. Like I think you can take a loss on one artist if it's worth it, if you're feeling confident enough elsewhere in your business. So where as that pertains to like to your community, I mean, I think that's oh where
Well, I'm
where
curious. So I
where to
used to work
begin.
in, the music industry, and there was times when, as a promoter, they would bring in a small act, take a gamble on this small act in
Sure,
order to bring in like a really big act, soon after. It's like a kind of like maybe they're through like the same agency or management company, whatever. But it's almost like kind of
sure.
a package deal. Is that similar in the art
I,
world?
I, oh, absolutely. No question. I mean, any gallery worth their salt is going to have a stable, and I hate that term is so, it never ceases to stop being weird, but it like is still industry standard. But, it's going to have, if you're doing it right, you've got a range of artists at very different stages of their career and working in any number of different media for sure. Um, yeah, yeah, I think it's, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
of
you
course.
you hit on it, Ponyo. Though I think you hit on it by saying, like taking a risk on
Yeah,
someone. Like I think that some of the best gallerists, it's like they know how to balance that, like,
Hmm.
this is gonna, like, keep the keep the bills paid, but also, like, we're taking risks, you know?
Yeah. Kind of have
Or
that
there's lots of
balance.
yeah, and there's gallerists I know that make, like, personal sacrifices to make those risks happen, like, that I don't know, it's like personal risks, but I don't know. Some of the gallerists I most respect are like I'm gonna do some shout outs. Like Conduit Gallery in Dallas. It's like
Yeah,
they've
kind of
got a
great.
strong program, but they got this weird room where when you go in, it might be wild and nothing's gonna sell in it, but it's so good. And it moves you and you feel engaged and like you're a part of this thing that's not just like buying and selling work that is worth so much more than like the
Yeah.
money they're making on the other show, or maybe it's worth equal. It's like they're finding a balance between like taking risks and putting ideas like with sort of the capital gains side of
Hmm.
Well, and for this community, Postmasters, they've been around since they've been around for over 30 odd years, and they were like way before I even knew about NFTs. They started entering your space. Now they've got this whole like Postmasters blockchain artist representation deal, and they're representing like a fuck ton of artists. It's shocking.
Yeah.
But they've been around for a long time. So
Yeah.
it goes to show that you can be like long entrenched and critically relevant and still be taking really regular, consistent risks, which they've been doing for a long time.
Cool. And
But yeah,
you know,
conduits are great. We should
And
do
those risks.
we could make this a shout out section. That'd
Well,
be
well, we can put,
no, no, shut
some.
up. I mean, I think sometimes those risks also too, and maybe that's like an interesting intersection with the NFT space too. And I think I put it in my notes too, where it's like I feel like artists and like gallery spaces are really quick to like adopt new ideas. And I think we talk traditional art market and NFT, but I think really it's like existing art market. And most artists I know and work with are really pushing boundaries of like what is understood as art and what are understood as risk taking. So I feel like some of the risk takers are going to be quicker to adopt these ideas and maybe not in the most conventional ways, but they're gonna like take it as an opportunity to like further an idea
Mhm.
and like engage in a market, and maybe there's some money in it.
Well,
Maybe
Dennis,
that.
I have a question for you then, because I was thinking about this earlier when um, we were asked like should there be more galleries endeavoring to facilitate this digital or NFT conversation better
Yeah.
or and it I wonder what you think about this. Like I am of the mind that it really ought to be driven by the artists. Like the artists need to be bringing this to their gallerists and driving the conversation that way. And then like it should there be some proactive gallery urgency to represent this artist and let them come, or should it work in the other direction?
I think like in some cases like the artist will bring it to the gallery, but I think there needs to be someone like sniffing it out, like myself
Mm,
in a nonprofit. Like I am hearing this, I'm seeing artists
mhm.
doing this, and while like I nonprofit hat where I'm just like, is it just about money? Um, like have those glasses or hat on or whatever. It's like I think that it should be like sort of on both sides. Like the artists need to be bringing it to the galleries and saying like, here's my way or here's what I'm doing. But also there should be people in the gallery like with their ear listening to it, sort of seeing what's happening. And also I think there is possibly a moment where they meet like magically because like, I don't need to be indoctrinated on NFTs. I know about it. I think what you're doing is amazing. It's radical. It's cool. But what I'll be most interested is when someone's doing something very, very, very special with it. You
Amen.
know?
Mhm.
So it's like not like saying, I want to open the doors up. We only do NFTs. I want to see that person that's, taking the medium and stretching it.
That's what I was saying last time, Dennis. And I don't know. I think there's nothing else we should be talking about here, frankly.
Yeah,
Like we can talk about
it needs to be stretched
there is
beyond.
nothing else we need to be talking about. It's about, we get these like questions around like what are the challenges, barriers to entry. The greatest challenge is that from Dennis and my perspective is artists are wrestling with the implications of the media of choice. How do we get what does this universe mean for someone who is wrestling with the long history of the implications of paint? Not only what paint can visually create for them, not only the visual effect that paint provides, not only the physical ways they can manipulate it, but like the political and social implications. Like how do you
burden of being a painter
precisely
today.
like how do you
Like,
get
have a conversation with a painter? It's just like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah,
Like you're tackling history and today, but like NFTs, like new blank slate. But I still feel like, I don't know. I was trying to think of like a really clever analogy for that, where it's just like it's actually evolving so quickly that like looking under the hood of a car today in versus 2 years ago in the NFT scape is like my dad looking under his hood of his car in the 1960s and me doing it today. It's like it's harder to, it's changing so quickly. It's like it needs to sort of figure out a way where there's a space that like it can be entered in, examined, broken apart, experimented with, um displayed in many ways. Like I'm really looking forward to the display conversation because I'm an exhibition maker more than a, you know, salesperson. So it's like I think like it's fascinating, and like I'm totally not dismissive of it, and like I don't come here with like a chip in my shoulder of like NFTs bad at all. Like I think it's fascinating, and the system has the power to really like mix things up. um it also empowers artists in incredible ways.
Yeah.
Like the royalty system alone basically checks a box off of something that me and a nonprofit working for the past 15 years has been fighting for 15 years of like artists need to be paid and artists need to be compensated. And so seeing that that's built in, it's like there's so many great things about it, but I do think on the forward thinking front there needs to be ways to like get it in front of an audience in a way that's um, that you don't have to have a manual to understand what's happening. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's a visceral response to the work, or there's a like like there's a moment where you leave the space and you feel either that you've like I don't know, you've thought about art in a different way.
It's
I
a
mean, doing that, but yeah, in spaces. Anyways, I'm sorry, we're
no,
totally
no.
like derailed.
I love it. No, I love like
That's
the back and
fantastic.
forth. I think that's great. And Jessica, you were in Miami for Art Basel. Is that correct? So you saw the digital and how that was all displayed. Like, I'm just curious. I haven't talked to you about this, but like, what's your take on? I wasn't at Art Basel, but I'm curious to know, like, what can you tell us a little bit about the experience as a whole, and then also just like focusing in on, just the digital and what we did or what Sophia Garcia, Kate, and some other people did at that gallery space or at that space.
So Basel, oh God, I should have thought this through, but yeah, this is totally what we should be talking about. Yeah, Basel was amazing. Patient zero, typhoid, Phifer over here. It was totally absurd that we were all there, riddled with COVID. It was awesome. Everyone was so happy to be back together, and it felt like a bigger Basel than one I'd experienced in some time. And so the digital, that was stunning. That far exceeded my expectations. And I think I had high expectations. It was gorgeous. I'd be remiss not to gush over the actual space itself, which was this, for folks who didn't get to see it, it was this just very raw, industrial, narrow, but with tremendous height and volume. It's just beautiful industrial space that really allowed the work to shine. But it was just hung expertly with great space, enough room to breathe. but it was slick, man. It was just super sexy. And I was thoroughly impressed. And not to get off topic of display and how this work is best shown, but there was something else even more visceral for me that happened at the digital, and we can talk about Basel separately, but like people were so happy being in there. Like they were just, these were people that like have a different kind of love affair with this work, a different kind of relationship with this work than I think Dennis, not to speak for Dennis, but I'm going to, that Dennis and I kind of maybe are kind of used to. Like there was this like sort of puppy love, effusive giddiness that was so heartwarming and delightful to be around. And it just had a really different vibe. That party was like a different vibe than I've experienced at like, wow, this is the first time we're going to see all this art in person together with fellow experts. There was just this thrill for people. I mean, I was talking to these two bros who God, I wish I could remember their names. It's so offensive for me to call them bros in this derisive way. These were the loveliest people. And they were just so happy to see their favorite examples of, I would hate to misname someone, but like just this glee, just pure joy. So that is not adding much to this conversation,
reassuring
but like, yeah, it was really special. I felt deep gratitude to get to witness it. But all that said, just aesthetically speaking, it was sick, like beautifully installed. And I think you are in perfect company to talk about this stuff with Dennis, like the real particulars around how these works are best shown. I'm dying to hear what everyone thought about the Christie's installation. Like if it was a matter of that the materials were off, or that it was shunted off to some like distant gallery, that it was pride of place an issue. And I think, Masood, you asked at one point, like what degree of care they should or shouldn't have about installation. Unless an artist, a part of the work explicitly states that they do not care, meaning there's a performative element and that you as owner get to take ownership of how it's installed, assume that installation is essential. Like it is of tremendous import. But I'd love to hear what Dennis thinks about.
I think too, as like an artist. Oh no, I'm jumping in unless like Anya, you have.
No, please do. Yeah. I'd love to hear your point.
I think that's like probably a good note to take as an artist creating these types of works too. Like if you are very particular about how they are shown, embed that in your contract. Like, I would say like, in an ideal world, every exhibition space would have millions of dollars to buy giant screens and do slick interpretations. But like Galveston Art Center is not Miami Basel. We've got 2 projectors, the decent resolution, and 2 monitors. But understand how you work with spaces and the type of considerations that you think are most crucial to your presentation. To me, actually, like I see NFTs as their own thing that exists in digital space, but I'm very curious about like how they would exist in physical space, because that can make or break. I mean, I love hearing your take on Basel too, because it kind of echoes like thinking of NFTs in virtual space. It's like the world is, welcome to virtual space and these Zoom interface type meetings. So we're accustomed to working out. But I will tell you, I very much despise those white-roomed virtual rooms you walk through, because I always find myself stuck in a corner and I can't navigate out of them. So like the balance of like existing in digital space, but having a moment like Basel to come together and see digital works in physical space, there is a human element of like, we're with people. That's like maybe a trick with display too, and exhibition making. I mean, you go in and to see NFTs, or you go into physical spaces and you're seeing the work, but oftentimes when I look at work, I see the artist who made it, and that makes it like extra special to me because I know their story, I know their history, how they came to do that. So that building that narrative of like you as an artist, it doesn't have to be like present in the work, but like seeing, you can see the progression of how work has changed over time or how they've shown it in different places. There's always a physical element. So I love hearing at Basel, especially like that. There's like the celebration of like we're together, looking at screens together, and
And
not
it
looking
didn't
at them alone.
and it didn't feel, yeah, it didn't, I was struck by it. It was uncanny. And I wonder if if it needs to be that expertly installed or if it needs to be such a great, I keep glitching out. I'm so sorry. Is it only glitching
Yeah,
on my end?
it kind of looks like a generative art piece, but
That's by design, you
yeah,
guys.
exactly, yeah.
That's the big reveal. This is a
It's a,
piece I'm
It'll work
working on.
its way out. It's just part of the yeah.
Sorry.
let's have a conversation about reptilians. Yes.
But I do wonder
Speaking
if that, I wonder if that would have been that same, because granted, these are all these people who all came together, get to see each other in person, maybe in some cases for the first time. Like it was a big, important event for them. And I mean, even as a mere nobody friend of Eric, it was like an honor and thrill for me to get to be. So I felt that joy too. But I do wonder if it hadn't been so brilliantly and beautifully, elegantly installed, if that would have resulted in the same effect.
What's kind of the pulse though from other people in the traditional art world that might have seen either that exhibit or just NFTs and in general?
I've seen some great memes.
Yeah. Oh, memes are part
Some
of
really
like
great
kind of the
memes. If
crypto
you're not following
space.
like art review power, I mean, take it with a grain of salt if you're making them. Don't like it like huffy about it. But there's some funny memes out there about them. But I think in the art world at play in general, like there's like several camps. There's some people who are going to be like, yes, yeah, I'm a cheerleader, like keep going. But there's always going to be people that are like, I think there's a high level. I mean, I overheard. I was in Marfa between Christmas and New Year's too, and I overheard about a conversation that happened there. Like, I think there's going to be inherent suspicion because of the great capital gains that are being made in this platform. You know what I mean? I think like that artists are going to be suspicious of the money. And are you doing it for the money? I mean, we're all doing it for the money in some level. Like I have a job in the arts because I have a paycheck, but I do it because I love it. So it's like figuring out how to balance the like market speculation of it
Yeah.
and the platform with the like transformative moments of us standing at Art Basel, being so happy together, looking at these things together. That's part of the work. It's not just the work alone and what it was traded for. So I feel like there's going to be some negative kickback because I think that I don't know. I mean, I'm rambling, but I think that I think when people see the money, there's always some suspicion.
Yeah. Do you think education is well? Actually, let me let you, Jessica.
Oh,
It looks
yeah.
like you wanted to talk.
Well, because I'd like to round that out a bit. I think,
Yeah.
there are lots of memes, and I think what I'm happy about what's happening right now, and Masood, you touched on this a little bit before we went live, that it's kind of a little bit quieter right now. It feels a little less frenetic, like chatter around it, which I think is very good and is a mark of a good, healthy arc that you want. From jump, literally any artist I'm close to would have been derisive and dismissive of this stuff, just reflexively. I think the moment this chills out and it stops being quite so frothy, and there's a little time for people to see if there's a way in which there's an argument that they can get to, even if you tease them in via smart contracts, I don't know. But like, I think just chilling out a bit allows a lot of the artists that we enjoy and value a chance, like that's more of a temperature that might be more inviting to them. So I think it's good that it feels a little less like, it's like not every day there's some new crazy NFT sale or some new, someone's launched some new platform or whatever. So I hope that maintains a bit, but
Are you encountering artists that you know and work with that are entering the space though? I mean, that was something that was sort of touched on because
Mhm.
I have a handful that I've seen like in the wild. Like my job is to like seek out artists and
Yeah.
look for artists, and so I'm like actually kind of thrilled when I see someone toying with it in different ways. Like had a
Actually, there
studio
was
visit with like Duel, who's like Houston-based artist.
oh, maybe go.
Great, like artist has been working in so many ways, but it was like seeing him on Instagram making one of his paintings into sort of an animated GIF. It was GIF. It was funny, and it was more like, should I make an NFT? And he's like toying with it, you know.
Yeah.
So Gabriel Dahl, like very well established Texas artist out of the Dallas Fort Worth area, like amazing installations of thread that are highly labor intensive. Creating an NFT is like it blows my mind. I'm just like, oh, good. Like there are artists that are like maybe studio based or artists that are even just in like the sphere I work in. I think I see going to it. But do you?
I have. I've seen there at least questioning and interest, and then maybe some poo-pooing of it. But what I think is especially interesting, maybe, and this might be too big of a topic, but especially salient for this crew, is that it takes very little time for you to look at this community and recognize that there is a lot more to it. Like a lot is required of you to enter this space, and just in terms of just the sheer level of engagement. It's just a massive job to just be on the Discord. Like it's so
Can be
much.
overwhelming.
I think that's actually the biggest challenge. Yeah, it's weird how we talk about the intellectual challenges, the how do you get around the art world snobbery, all this stuff. I think it's just like from a bandwidth perspective, getting like I think for this community, they grew up, or I don't know, they grew up in it, but it's just so much more second nature for them. I think what I see our friends, Eric, like what they are tasked with labor wise, just in engagement within the community alone is so massive. That is a
Yeah.
big hurdle alone. And I think you're going to see interesting things crop out from that, be it, talent representation or a whole new style of artist representation or gallery representation, wherein you've got a different kind of artist management thing around that alone emerging. Like,
Mm.
but I'm happy to hear that you've got even like, like people working in fabric, and that's awesome. What? That's
Yeah, I mean it's
cool to
interesting
hear.
to see an artist dip into it, but I think it's out of like the same way that I mean I've only been aware of it after having a meeting with Eric, aka Snowfro,
Oh,
because
Snowbro, sorry. Oh gosh.
well, yeah, well,
Right.
like he reached out last March or something, and it was like I knew him through Lawndale days. He did a light protection piece. He was in the big show, one of our juried shows, and it was just like, hey. And it's like my first reaction was like, the system is amazing. The system that you're building is so cool. The work, give me some time. Let's see how it develops.
Mhm.
Agreed.
But the system is solid and cool. And that's not just blockchain, but it's also like art blocks as a platform. The artists I had mentioned that might be minting work, they don't have the support or the platform of a venue like art blocks. And in many ways, in my mind, I'm equating art blocks with the way that a gallery works.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's work being distributed from a central source that people need to go to. Any other artists, like I encountered a photographer in Fort Davis, Texas, that was like, oh, yeah, I made NFTs, but you got to be on Twitter. You got to do your own marketing. You've got to do your own, all of these things. And I was like, these are the same things that unrepresented artists that are trying to break into like the physical gallery system are having their own marketing team. They have to
Yeah.
have a presence online, but it's like having facilitators, be it nonprofits, be it commercial galleries, be it digital spaces that actually curate and funnel work out to an audience is like it's a great service like to offer artists. And so don't discount the work that you are doing as an organization.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious
The-
to know. I'm curious to know a little bit about like the education component because I feel like that is probably the biggest hurdle, I think, for a lot of people to get into NFTs and to kind of like wrap their, brain around like what's going on. And I feel like a lot of, obviously you'll see a lot of like that frothy stuff on, new and like, I don't know, in the news, it's like, oh yeah, Beeple made like a massive sale of like several, like, $1 million. And I think people see like those highlights and they don't see like what is actually like being built in the space. So like, what do you think is the most difficult thing for people to, I mean, why do you think it's so difficult for people to grasp NFTs or, even generative art, like what we're building here? Do you think it's education? Do you think it's like, what exactly are you seeing maybe in the traditional art world that we can improve to like make those connections, or I guess just to like educate people of like what we're doing?
You have ideas.
Yeah. Dennis is I'm gonna be the bummer. I think Dennis should start because this is his wheelhouse.
No, be the bummer.
No. It's gonna be more of a sort of, I'm thinking more broadly, a position that is just really just time based and it's just going to be time served. But this is so your wheelhouse, so you should answer this.
I think there's multi-prongs. I'll first like start with a compliment. I think I feel like really happy to have learned about this space through like direct contact with like Eric and you folks. It was just like, oh, like what is this? And then seeing like a lot of effort that you are making even through this platform to have conversations. This is education. Like this is education in this moment, even though hopefully there's a takeaway and I didn't offend anyone, but it's like I've seen conversations at the University of Houston happen with Eric from Art Blocks talking to a group of like the visual arts department. And I was like, great, that's happening. You're putting yourself out there and having the conversation and making it like accessible and like giving people an intro. I do think like being in a nonprofit, we have a huge component of what we do. What we do is education. And so partnering with organizations that are actually talking to people would be a big component. We have in-house classes. Like we actually have 2 classes on our calendar this spring. One of them is like creative circuitry with a local artist tinker, Nick McIntyre. Like he offered another class that was like creative coding. So it's like there's actually like people in classrooms with young people. I think as a nonprofit offering those is like we hit that line, but we're not going to be like, let's mint some stuff and make some money. Like even like introducing Art Blocks' component about like the charitable giving side. Like I had our finance committee meet with Art Blocks to decide if we should create an Ethereum address to accept donations. And it was like this huge thing, like to be like, it's not a scam. So I think there's a lot of suspicion, but I think the best way is like continuing to like share the work. That's what we do in exhibition spaces, share the work, be transparent. But there's gonna always be a bit of a mental bridge. I think I talked about car parts. I like metaphors, but I think there's also the bridge, like think of photography. Like I have a family photo album. I've digitized it, but I still want those physical objects. I still have my CDs and cassettes from childhood. But I listen to everything like streaming. But there's like that figuring out how to like get people comfortable in a virtual space to where like this exists here. I mean, young people are always going to adapt to things like much quicker. But like finding those educational outlets, that's what I was really excited to hear that our education director was offering like creative coding. And I was like, oh my God,
great, yeah,
that's so cool. Like, because but I also wanted, like, I think it has to happen hand in hand. It can't be like, ditch all these and only do this, They're like a big part of our education program is outreach to health and human service sites. So we're talking about like art as therapy. And it can't be like, here's a keyboard. We need to give you a chunk of clay to put your hands in. So it's like figuring out how to, like engage like a really diverse like audience in the conversation.
That's
Um,
great. So do you think,
Also, too, like they're in a place to empower lots of people. Like the money I'm saying skeptical of, but like there's like this place to like empower a lot of people who could really benefit from the funding. It's like go into schools that are like poverty stricken,
Mhm.
get those kids in and making NFTs, like transform communities with the money. Like the money is great, but like make the money work as part of the project.
Yeah.
And then there's like lots of power in that to me. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, yeah, a lot of it will kind of lie into education, but then also, yeah, tapping into those communities that are underserved and, making a difference there to kind of bring everyone together, to kind of share this like new and kind of unique technology that's out there right now.
yeah, it's like why settle for just acceptance? Like let's go for radical change, please.
Mhm.
Like I mean, that's me just wanting to have art be something that can be transformational. And I think that's where we should all strive as artists to like have art have an impact on society that
Yeah.
actually changes the way people think and empowers them. So sell some NFTs.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about, like NFT galleries. So if I don't know how familiar you are, but we're seeing more of these pop-ups, or not just pop-ups, like actual spaces where they're just focused on NFT, basically just NFT galleries. Do you think there's going to be a time where, maybe these more traditional art world gallery spaces or museums will kind of be like almost a hybrid over time, and it'll be like, they'll do like NFTs and like half the museum or, gallery space, and then, it'll be more of like the traditional art that's currently in those spaces right now?
Uh, do you want, Dennis, you want?
I have not experienced an NFT in a physical space yet, so I feel like a little uninformed. But I feel like I've heard anecdotes about a space in New York where like you could walk into a gallery and drop down some cash and have one minted for you right there. That feels like pachinko parlor to me, like not interested. Like,
Mhm.
but I feel like there's a hybrid. I think that's about like I don't know. I mean, I was trying to think of like the closest example I've had of like how do you a challenging situation of presenting something that would be introducing a new topic in an exhibition space. And like a couple of years ago, I did a show about currency because our building is an historic like bank building. It was called Exchange Rate, and I had Mike Berardino, who is an artist who created a piece based on
Mike,
yeah, Mike
I've heard
Berardino,
from, I have
amazing
one.
artist.
One could argue that it's a generative piece.
It's a generative piece.
I
He
have
had
a
a
generative piece.
Bitcoin mining device, and he,
It's
forgive
a
my
physical.
shorthand of it, used
But
the Bitcoins that he had mined during the course of the exhibition to purchase nuggets of like precious metals that were recycled from computer parts. Like,
oh,
um,
interesting.
this several years later, I had this currency show was like looking at artists using currency, one as material, but also like as concepts. So there were artists that used barter systems, alternative currencies. Mike was like our crypto guy. And we just showed the hard drive, a nugget, and he had like a card that was like his Bitcoins, the exchange that he was using to convert them to fiat, like went bankrupt or something. And there's like a crazy amount of money tied up. So we just showed like the legal notice of bankruptcy with that, and it was like there's the piece. Like it wasn't doing anything, but it's like that piece was like amazing because it helped me understand cryptocurrency and the complications of it. So I think there's bridges and incremental steps that could be made, and I don't think it just needs to be like flash an image on a screen, but I think it's like delving into the concept of it with exhibition making could really like be like a fascinating area. Like I can't wait to do like my 2.0 currency show because we're still in a bank and be like let's incorporate this system because you've created a new like economy of like art like exchange. So anyways, that's my rambles. I don't mean to like
Mike,
hijack.
Mike is such a great example. I don't know why I hadn't thought of him earlier because I've got a crazy early piece, this big light structure that's just nuts, and it's got these controls, and it's super, super lo-fi, but like has a very strong intellectual argument being posed. And
Yeah.
and
Such a
remember that show?
thoughtful, like, person. Yeah.
He's freaking awesome. God,
Smart.
I want to pick that brain for days. Remember that great show we had at Arturo's? There was that you walk in the gallery and you see nothing, and it was all
virtual
virtual.
or augmented
It was years
reality.
ago. But
Yeah, it was
again,
augmented reality. It was adapting new technologies very quickly and adapting them. And I think that that's where like artists are like the strongest at like adapting
exactly.
technologies and then having like smart gallerists and curators that know how to either like curators like letting them do what they do, gallerists knowing how to package it. Because Arturo Palacios, formerly of Art Palace, was like magic with that. Like he knew how to sell video work. Like
Yeah.
video work was like the hardest stuff to sell in a commercial setting, but it's like you make a video, we're going to have you make a box. It's going to live in this beautiful box in the DVD or the jump drive. And it was like, it became like he was able to figure out how to actually give access to a collector that like wanted the object. So it's like those bridges are actually being built. I think um, that I think that NFTs have like these platforms have excelled so quickly that it's like we have to catch up like
But
to
I
a
guess
wave.
but to the question about will there be a hybrid model, or I think that matters less. I guess the long and short of this is that matters less. What the model will look like matters less than just good work. Like this
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
just really good, strong work. That was just that you didn't need
Yeah.
to be drawn to digital art or drawn to like, I think you just needed to be into a really compelling argument. And if you were up for that, then there's kind of
Yeah.
no one that would have been on board. Like I think the work's got to be good.
Those environments, I think those environments will naturally gravitate towards each other, where gallerists will understand artists will teach gallerists how to work with that and curators. So there will be a natural draw to, but I would also make the case for in the NFT space, like you've created kind of this magical wonderland. It's like own it for what it is and like keep making approaches to this like physical world, but at the same time it's like don't neglect it for like the power it has on its own. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I don't think that they need to naturally meld. I think that one needs they like the NFT space should stand like firmly independently as its own system.
Mhm.
But like keeping a branch open to it, I think is good. It's the same as the physical space. I think because I would hate to see them be like totally like saturated amongst each other to where like every gallery is only showing NFTs
Yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely.
NFT spaces are now printing prints of their work. I feel like they're own like the strength of the space, like owning the strength of those spaces is good, but like still maintaining some bridge. Like there'll be those magic artists that like can navigate between the different spaces. I think. I don't know. That's like really bad advice, but I just was just like I feel like I want to be like empower yourself. It's like you've created an alternative system. I think like back since the 80s, there's been a term given to spaces that I work in today that are no longer, but they were originally referred to as alternative spaces. And they offered an alternative to the current systems and they helped like those systems change and transform. So it's like take what you're doing well and keep doing it. You know, don't I don't know. You're the new alternative space, maybe? I don't know if that's
Yeah.
is that wrong, JP? Like, is
No,
that
I agree.
in a way? I mean, it's a whole new group of people making. It's what I think is exciting because I think that sometimes like being everyone is an artist in my mind. I don't think it's an elitist thing that like you can only be an artist if you're this thing. So I really appreciate the fact that this platform and this work has like empowered people to think creatively and like generate work. So more power to you. Like just spread the love. Like here's our Ethereum address at GAC. Just kidding. We don't have to. They haven't approved it. So,
Are you
but I
gonna
like
get
to spread the
one?
love. no, I mean, it's like we're slow. Like we work on an island and it takes time.
Yeah.
And this is but I think like um no, it's good. It's like be nurturing of the communities that you live in and the artists that you work with. Like if you're making tons of money on NFTs, maybe go buy a piece of art that's physical too. Like, and I think us folks need to buy these things too. I mean, I will admit, like this has been fascinating to me in terms of being introduced to this space. Just having the conversation with Eric and admitting I have one of his squiggles, I caught myself looking at it daily, like for
That's
a while,
awesome.
and I was like, "This is a problem." But it made me intimately aware of being drawn to like offers that I was being given.
Mhm.
I don't see myself as a collector. I will take this from Julie Webb. I'm an accumulator because I take things and I will never sell them. So it's kind of like interesting to see how quickly things are moving around and bots are making offers on things, and it just blows my mind. Like, because I'm
Yeah,
just like,
it's
it's
crazy.
not actually physical people like saying, "Oh, could I get that from you?" It's a bot that's like tracing OpenSea to try to like manipulate a market. So
Mhm.
that's a whole other conversation I think that could be had about this is not just people trading and collecting objects. There's also like software and bot like things being
Sure, yeah.
used to manipulate a market, which to me is like a little bit nefarious. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you look at the squiggle animated, or is it
Yeah,
just like a
yeah. You, like,
still?
tap
Okay.
it, boop, 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 boop. Yeah. So it's funny to watch. I think I love it just because it's like I look at objects and associate them with people. Again, I see that. I'm like, look at it's Eric. Granted, if it would pay off my mortgage, I'd sell it in a heartbeat. But like, I still find it as an educational tool, even having something like that. It's
Yeah.
giving me an entryway to just see how it functions like a financial object as well as a physical object. So it's opened me up in my hardcore nonprofit art is all priceless way to see how it can be like how an object can be viewed and like cross this market. So I totally appreciate it. It's more like I like holding on to it just to see how this market work and this space works. So I think like um yeah, I mean I would say anyone that's like the super skeptic, I feel like here let me make you an NFT and give it to you and just see what happens to it.
Mhm.
um just navigating it, it's fascinating, the system is fascinating. So
Yeah, I think it's such a cool and unique space. I mean, it travels incredibly fast, as you know, you both kind
yeah,
of like touch base on. Do you have a hardware wallet? Actually, I wanted to ask that.
I was like reading about that and I got overwhelmed. And I feel like I'm logged into a channel to a lot of people that know a lot about computers, and I'm like, please don't steal my passwords. There's nothing in my bank. But like I don't know how hardware. I haven't gone into that. I've gone onto the Discord a couple times just to like read. It's
Mhm.
overwhelming. Like you
Yeah.
guys are
Yeah.
like, how many people are on staff at Art Walks right now? Or Art Blocks right now?
A little over 20, and I know they're in our Discord. Obviously, not everyone's active, but I know there's like a little over 40,000 people that
That's
are a
amazing.
part. Yeah, it's crazy.
So here's a little funny anecdote, like if it helps in terms of like my understanding of digital space, and I'm just sharing because we're here.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
like I'm an artist, like that's my background as well. And like 5 years ago, I created this whole series of like costumes. I used to do this whole thing, and we shared an image on Reddit, and it made the top page one day. And at
Yeah.
that point, I realized like working in a physical space where one exhibition might have 1,500 viewers over the course of a month. I had 2 million viewers like within a 24-hour period. I was like, digital space is powerful.
Yeah.
Digital space is so, so powerful. It's like you have to release some authorship in some situations, but I was like, I'm totally like there for the power of that space being like you can access like this huge audience. Which that was my first encounter of being like, wow, why are we hanging things on walls when 20 million? Because my
Yeah.
goal is getting work in front of eyes, not sales. But it's interesting to see how this has evolved. So,
That's
anyways,
cool.
that's my little personal anecdote was like seeing the power of digital space. But
I think that's really cool. You're able to experience that firsthand, though. You know, to kind of, I'm sure that kind of like opened your eyes and being like you said, how powerful a digital
yeah,
space can be.
it was a fun, different experience. And the comments were a whole other experience that we
Sure,
don't need to
yeah.
go into. Like, so I won't be reading the comments here later. So
No.
please throw 'em. But I think like that's actually like if I give like a lot of yeah, there's a lot of weight in that space. I mean, I think that was 5 years, 5+ years ago now though too. And it's changed dramatically with the platforms that we all engage with. And so yeah, I mean, I don't love it. So when this ends, I will just like go endlessly scroll looking at Instagram. But I think like I'm excited to see like how y'all focused a community around something too. Like y'all are building something great. So cheers to you.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I've had such a enjoyable time talking to the two of you. Are there any, last notes or, information you kind of want to provide to the community before we kind of get to the news and notes and sign off?
There was a lot that I wanted to cover that we didn't get a chance to, and so
Sorry.
We're gonna have to book another one of these then.
we're gonna have to. No, but no. Thank you for having us. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for hearing my rants and my rambles. It was really good. It was fun. Thank you for creating an opportunity for me to get in a virtual space with
Yeah,
Jessica too, and to talk with you in person. So that's nice.
absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to do one of these either again on after dinner mints or even in person,
Oh
maybe
my
at.
gosh, people are sharing pictures of me in the comments, and this is freaking me
I
out.
think it's actually
I'm
Snowfro. Yeah, those are a
realizing.
couple of the costumes on
Well, the
there.
taxes, yeah. So that was from I made a calendar, and yeah,
Well, yeah, I'd love
I
to get another one
actually
of these.
minted them as NFTs too, just to see.
You
But
did?
OpenSea is such a black hole of just
Yeah.
people throwing stuff. I did it just don't buy them, but I did it, and they're not for sale. They're just on there. But I was like, how do you mint something? So you've got created a thing with me. So I was just like, how do you mint something? And then how do you get people to sell it? And how do you buy it? And I'm like, I'm not going to tweet about these things for sale. Like, that's so lame. I'm not a self promoter. I promote other artists. So it's like, okay, thanks y'all for looking at my sad website.
No, I think that's great. I'll have to look back through, those photos later on, but yeah, I definitely want to get another one of these on the books. I think it's just such a delight to, get this different perspective on, the traditional art world and obviously what we're doing in, the NFT digital space. But yeah, so thank you to Dennis. Thank you to Jessica for joining me. Always just love chatting with you both. And, Dennis, has been so great to meet you and have you on the show.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm going to go over a couple news and notes right now. On next week's After Dinner Mints daytime show, which will be on January 19th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, we have Andrew Rudnick and Clayton Lowry from Armanino LLP to talk about crypto taxes, everyone's favorite subject. So if you have any questions that you want answered with regards to taxes, which is coming up very soon for a lot of people, please message me on Discord. My username is Ponyo, or jump inside of the Tax Talk channel, drop a note in there before Monday, so you have a couple days. So yeah, I can bring up those questions to them on the show next week. Next thing is we don't have a curated drop this upcoming Monday, so enjoy the day off, enjoy some of the projects that are currently open. And tomorrow, on Thursday, we've started a new series of discussions on Twitter Spaces called Minters and Makers. It's a new weekly show with a variety of artists, collectors, and other notable community members with conversations surrounding generative art. Our next discussion will be, like I said, tomorrow. That'll be Thursday, January 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We have IPP Sketch, Peter Pasma, and Chris Reed. You can tune into that conversation via the Artblocks Twitter handle, twitter.com/artblocks_IO. And those discussions are going to be recorded just like, after dinner mints. And eventually it will be turned into podcasts, hopefully in the next few weeks, next few months. Finally, we have a weekly newsletter that gets delivered once a week with information on upcoming drops and other generative art related news. You can find a link to that in the description of this YouTube video. Again, I do want to thank Jessica and Dennis for being our special guests, for joining me on After Dinner Mints today. I always love talking to you, Jessica. It's really great to have you on the show. And Dennis, it was so great to meet you and have you on, talk about, what we're doing in this space and also the traditional art world. So for anyone watching, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to the Art Blocks YouTube channel. Be kind to each other. Remember to buy what you love. Get a hardware wallet. I'm looking at you, Dennis, if you get a chance. And
I'll talk to you about it.
we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.